over the weekend, and apparently reports just started coming in. I mean, I saw this in New York. There were reports on Twitter, like people putting out ICE enforcement in Queens on Staten Island. Understand something, that a sanctuary city is not one which has the ability to prevent federal authorities from entering into the city. This seems to be some type of misconception. What a sanctuary city or sanctuary state is that it bars local police officers, local EMTs, local state, county, municipal officials from reporting the immigration status of people they come in contact with. And the reason why this is important is you want these people to feel free to function as you would expect anybody else on the street if there's an emergency. You want them to call the fire department. You want them to call the police department. You want them to call if they see abuse of children.
Report serious crimes.
If they report, oh my God, they're pouring, someone's pouring feces into that food. Whatever it is. I'm just saying, whatever it is.
If they work at a restaurant, there's a major health violation. There's a rape. There's serious security implications.
And you want them to not hesitate to call the authorities. And so it becomes a sanctuary city in that respect. You are safe to function here as long as you're a law-abiding citizen. And understand, there's no one in this room who is a law-abiding citizen. No. Everyone in this room has participated in some activity that is far more illegal than coming in here and overstaying your visa or crossing into this country without documentation. Drug use, underage drinking,
killing someone.
Honestly, right there, just right there.
Capital One murder.
In my lifetime?
Yes.
Oh, good
right.
God.
Right, exactly. So just keep that in mind. In at least 6 states, and during the weekend, Jill Stein tweeted out something like, as these raids are happening, just remember Barack Obama did the same thing, or something to that effect.
So
I don't
stupid.
care. The point is not Jill Stein. The point is that it is the case that Barack Obama was bad on immigration. It is the case that particularly in his first term, he was extremely aggressive in deportation. By the second term, if you had not committed a felony, you would not be deported. And then, of course, there was DACA and DAPA. I think, I don't know what was in his mind, why he felt he had to do that or whatnot. But that's just the reality. She tweeted that out, and our own Ronald Reagan made the point. He's an immigration lawyer. Reagan made the point that what's happening now is that the Trump administration is deporting, scooping up people, and that the Obama administration never did. There are reports, I've not seen confirmation, but there have been reports of ICE officials going into neighborhoods and just knocking on doors and asking for documentation. There are reports of ICE officials going to doors, claiming to be looking for somebody else, and then coming in and asking for everybody for their papers. There have been reports of ICE officials basically doing roadblocks. Now, again, I have not seen those confirmed by major media outlets, but we don't know. Immigration authorities arrested hundreds of undocumented immigrants in at least a half dozen states, according to the Washington Post, in a series of raids that marked the first large-scale enforcement of Trump's January 25th order to crack down on the estimated 11 million immigrants living here without documentation. Officials said the raids targeted known criminals, but they also netted immigrants without criminal records, an apparent departure from civil enforcement waves during the Obama administration. Last month, Trump substantially broadened the scope of who the Department of Homeland Security can target to include those with minor offenses or no convictions at all. They raided homes and workplaces in Atlanta, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles area, North Carolina, South Carolina. Gillian Christensen, a spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees immigration and customs enforcement, said they were part of routine immigration actions. ICE dislikes the term raids and prefers to say authorities are conducting, quote, targeted enforcement actions, she said. Then the Post goes on to write, Christensen said the raids, which began Monday and ended Friday at noon, found undocumented immigrants from a dozen Latin American countries. We're talking about people who are threats to public safety or a threat to the integrity of the immigration system.
There you go.
A threat to the immigration
big
system.
Big loophole line right there.
ICE raids of unusual intensity during the past 2 days have taken place in Florida, Kansas, Texas, and Northern Virginia. Hiba Ghalib, an immigration attorney in Atlanta, said ICE detentions were causing mass confusion in the immigrant community. She said she had heard reports of ICE agents going door to door in one largely Hispanic neighborhood, asking people to present their papers. The Obama administration conducted a spate of raids and also pursued a more aggressive deportation policy than any previous president, sending more than 400,000 people back to their birth countries at the height of his deportations in 2012. This is, and we covered it at that time. And this is why, in the event that we have a Democratic president in the future, you push back. And why you get commitments up front from a presidential candidate, say, I don't know, Hillary Clinton, to not pursue this type of agenda.
She did sort of make some commitments like that, didn't she?
The public outcry over the lengthy detentions and deportations of women, children, and people with minor offenses led President Obama in his second term to prioritize convicted criminals for deportation. And then we ultimately subsequently got the DAPA and DACA Acts, which, of course, forget about, gone. And how does that play out, the DACA and DAPA? For 8 years, Guadalupe Rios had checked in at the Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office in Phoenix. Requirement since she was caught using a fake Social Security number during a raid in 2008 at a water park when she worked. Every year since then, she's walked in and out of the meetings after a brief review of her case and some questions. Rios was always a candidate for deportation, but as a matter of practicality, the Obama administration had focused its finite resources on removing the most serious criminals. The government even won a deportation order against Rios in 2013, but had not carried it out, instead merely requiring her to check in periodically. Rios came to this country about 15 years ago, I guess, when she was 14. She left Acambaro, a city in the corner of the Mexican state of Guanajuato. She sneaked across the border into Nogales, Arizona, 3-hour drive from Phoenix. She married. Her husband is also undocumented. Gave birth to a boy and a girl who are now in their teens. She was working at Gulfland Sunsplash in Mesa, a suburb of Phoenix, when Maricopa County Sheriff Deputy swooped in 2008. Sheriff Arpaio, I should say, arresting her and several other employees on charges of suspicion of identity theft and using forged documents to obtain employment. She spent 3 months in county jail, followed by 3 months in an immigration detention. In 2013, the immigration court ordered that she be sent back to Mexico, but her case has been on hold since the changes that President Obama instituted. Her son, Angel, still remembers the evening of her arrest. The knock on the door, the flashlight in the darkened living room, the sight of handcuffs on his mother's wrists. I was in second grade. I never forgot that night. I've lived in fear of losing my mother every night since then. So Rios went to her appointment about a week ago, Wednesday, knowing what would happen or could happen. Carlos Garcia, executive director of Puente, an immigrants' right group, told her she could skip it and go into hiding or seek refuge at a church in North Phoenix, joining 2 other unauthorized immigrants facing deportation who have lived there for months. She went to the appointment anyways. She was arrested. She was deported. On Thursday, Ms. Rios' husband and children received a call from her telling them she was in Nogales, Mexico. She's not lived in Mexico since the age of 14. Her daughter had stayed with protesters until long past midnight. They tried to blockade the car that took her out of that meeting that sent her to be deported. By sunrise, the daughter was home packing her mother's suitcase, toothpaste, her brush, her favorite pants and shirts. To have to pack her mother's bag, she said, her lips quivering, tears filling her eyes, isn't fair. So finally, we've gotten this woman out of the country. This is what the spokesman for the Federation of American Immigration Reform, Ira Melman, said. It's easy to put a human face on this one woman. You know, I also suspect that it's easy to put a human face on the other human beings that are going through this same process, because they're human and they all have human faces. We can't precisely pinpoint who the person or people who might have gotten a job taken by a person or people here illegally, he said. The general principle we hold, the people who violate the laws responsible for the consequences that accrue to other people. So in other words, Ira Melman has never broken a law. He's never gotten a speeding ticket. He's never smoked marijuana when it was illegal. He never took a drink as an underage kid. He's never cheated on his taxes. He's never had a relative who's bought drugs from Canada. We don't hold people in this country, never mind like bank fraud. Oh, no. You know, those people.
You might get a cabinet position.
You get a cabinet position.
Yeah. This is worth looking at.
Absolutely stunning. And this is what the implications of it. Here is Paul Ryan just now, almost a month ago today, at the CNN town hall, assuring people that this very thing wouldn't happen.
We've got a drug problem. We've got a lot of problems. We want to be able to secure our border. When people get confidence in this country that our border is secured, that our laws are being enforced, then I really believe the country, all people in the country, will be in a much better position to fix these thornier, bigger problems. But if you're worried about, some deportation, force coming on, knocking on your door this year, don't worry about that. So let me ask.
And now let's play the clip of Paul Ryan, who came out today and really poignantly criticized the administration for this deportation force that's going out there, targeting people who are just a threat to the integrity of our immigration system. Here it is. I mean, you got to hand it to him. He's very good on that organ, isn't he?
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.